Hello, this is a short video on the supply-side policy, which is part of Economics A2 level Unit 4. The supply-side policy basically aims to expand output without inflationary measures, and there's two ways of showing this, on the left and the right. Obviously, the diagram on the right, which is the production possibility boundary, doesn't show that there's no inflation, it just shows an increase in the capacity. But that's quite an easy one to draw. If you've got more time and you want to do some actual explanation, go for the one on the left, which is the long-run aggregate supply curve. Essentially, for the diagram on the left, a supply-side policy we put into place, which will increase the productive capacity of the economy and all the things in the economy, and that will cause the long-run aggregate supply curve to shift to the right. If you need explanation of this, go watch some AS videos, because they talk about the long-run aggregate supply curve in more detail. But essentially it shifts to the right, so we're more internationally competitive and there's probably more employment as well going on. And that's loads of economic improvements which cause the aggregate demand curve to shift to the right as well, which is why we've had a shift in aggregate demand curve and a shift in the long-run aggregate supply curve. And you can see here there's an increase in output along the x-axis, but there's no actual increase in the price level. So we've essentially had economic growth without inflation. This is actually the last slide, and it's just got loads of different examples of various supply-side policies split into labour market measures and product market measures. The most obvious supply-side policy that comes to most people's mind when you say supply-side is education and training. Very simply increases the productive capacity of the labour. So say we have John can make 5 paint pots a day. John goes off for some training, now he can make 10 with the same sort of resource. It's still just one person, still John, but he's doubled in his productive capacity. So that's increasing productive capacity. The next one is lower income tax, because high income tax is a disincentive to work. So if we have lower income tax, people feel more inclined to work, so they're prepared to work for longer, put in the extra hours. Often they're also more energetic if they know that they're giving less money, so you can have increased productivity that way as well. And the way to choose the best income tax, often people see it on the Laffer curve, which I've shoved down there, which shows the optimal level for setting income tax. You don't really need to know too much about it, it's just a nice diagram. Another labour market measure is welfare to work, which are basically policies which increase incentives to work. So along with the lowering of income tax, the ones are sort of the national minimum wage, because obviously people don't want to be working for £3 an hour. So anything that will encourage people to work. So also reducing benefits can sort of go in that one. Working families tax credits encourages people to work rather than sit at home and take benefits, because for some people, the way the benefit system's set up, the poverty trap means that it would be more beneficial for them to just claim benefits rather than working. So the working families tax credit is a really good thing here. Also, childcare, stuff to do with childcare arrangements and the governments can be really good for getting people to go into work, because otherwise, I think for a lot of people, childcare costs are actually higher than their wages. So for them, without this sort of extra support the government's providing, it's not financially sort of valid for them to go in and work. It doesn't work out. And then employment programs. So I know that for a lot of young people, the government sets up programs to try to encourage them to get into employment and giving them extra skills and stuff. The final one there is trade union reforms, so essentially reducing the power of trade unions, because what trade unions try to do is push up wages through restricting the availability of labour, which essentially leads to unemployment and therefore wastage of potential output. So if we reduce the power of trade unions, we can encourage more people to work and hopefully benefit in that way from not losing that extra potential. Moving on to product market measures, which are essentially designed to increase competition and efficiency through increasing the productivity of industries. And we've got lots of lovely examples here as well. So this isn't to do with the people, this is to do with the actual industries themselves. Deregulation is a big one, essentially removing barriers to entry and promoting competition. So if we have lots and lots of monopolies rather than individual firms, that can actually be quite hard for other firms to get in. And if we've only got a few little firms, we know that monopolies tend to be less efficient, so our output isn't as great as it could actually potentially be, because monopolies restrict output in order to force prices up. So deregulation can be really useful for that. Although obviously you do need some competition policy, you need to have regulation of the industries, in that we need to prevent there from being lots of mergers and takeovers and stuff that could reduce competition. So that's the third one down, tough competition policy. We need to encourage dynamic efficiency, and you'll probably have learnt about that in Unit 3 and that sort of thing. Also, the second one there, privatisation, sort of goes in with this as well, because if we have a government-run firm, they tend to be less efficient than one that's being driven by profits. So if the government can sell its various sort of, I don't want to say industries, it's different things. That's a really bad explanation, but I'm sure you know what I mean. So the post office, they thought it'd be much more efficient if we have people running it that have an incentive to do well, which is profit. So those three sort of go together. Then we've got at the bottom there the encouraging ones. So encouraging entrepreneurship. I can't pronounce that. Entrepreneur. Yeah, that thing. Essentially encouraging innovation. I'll say that because it's easier. Encouraging innovation, because innovation leads to new processes, which is more efficient. And so if we're being more efficient, that's basically going to shift our aggregate supply curve outwards in the long run. And the last one, encouraging investment. For example, tax relief on capital spending leads to increased investment in sort of research and development in those sort of fields. And if we're researching new methods, it's the same as innovation essentially, we're going to increase our supply side capacity. Woo! We've reached the end of that very, very short supply side policy video. I know in the textbook they shoved them together, fiscal and supply side, but I think they're two separate things, and I wanted to have them as separate videos, so that's why you've got this 6-minute video here. Hopefully it's helped, and if it hasn't, then that's unfortunate. Have a lovely day. Goodbye.